One day I was reading through my Gospels, and all of a sudden the realization hit me. I know this probably hit you long before it hit me, but it just hit me that day. Wow! Jesus talks a lot about the kingdom of God. You ever notice that? In fact, he says it over 100 times in the Gospels. Are you with me? So, what is he talking about when he's talking about the kingdom of God? Because so many people see the kingdom of God as a place. They see it as heaven. But in reality, when Jesus talks about the kingdom of God, he's talking about the rule of God. If you look at the Greek words most frequently used for the kingdom of God in the New Testament, it is basileia tau theos. And the definition is this. Theos, of course, refers to God. Basileia is defined by royalty, rule, or reign. If you put it all together, the best definition I have found is God's supreme, powerful rule. So, when you hear the kingdom of God, you need to substitute the words God's supreme, powerful rule. So when Jesus says, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, he's saying, our Father in heaven, your supreme, powerful rule come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Now, the problem is most people, when they hear this, they think futuristically. They think of the time when Jesus will come back, bring the New Jerusalem back down to this earth after a 1,000-year reign, according to Revelation. It's really, really sad because they see the kingdom of God as being futuristic when in reality, it's already here. It's in us. Jesus says in Luke 17, verses 20 and 21, listen to the words of Jesus, not a Bible teacher. The kingdom of God does not come in such a way as to be seen. No one will say, look here, it is, or there it is, because the kingdom of God is within you. So, we are to spread its domain, its rule, where we are and wherever we go. And how do we do it? By the grace of God.
I would recommend that before you get to reading Luke 17, verse 21, you must first define the kingdom according to the scriptures, and not just by looking at a dictionary meaning of words, since we all know words have different meanings depending on context. The Old Testament prophets defined the kingdom as the worldwide government of God, and the New Testament adds that this kingdom will be presided by Christ with the resurrected Christians ruling all nations of a restored earth. The prophet Isaiah says that in the future, the mountain of the Lord's temple will endure as the most important of mountains and will be the most prominent of hills. All the nations will stream to it. Many peoples will come and say, come, let us go up to the Lord's mountain, to the temple of the God of Jacob, so he can teach us his requirements and we can follow his standards. For Zion will be the center for moral instruction. The Lord will issue edicts from Jerusalem. He will judge disputes between nations. He will settle cases for many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nations will not take up the sword against other nations, and they will no longer train for war. This same vision is repeated almost verbatim by the prophet Micah in chapter 4. The prophet Daniel, in the 7th chapter, has a vision of the future, and he says that he saw one like a human being coming with the clouds of heaven, and he came to the Ancient One and was presented before him. To him was given dominion and glory and kingship, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that shall not pass away, and his kingship, that is his kingdom, is one that shall never be destroyed. The prophet Daniel goes on to say that the kingship and dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the holy ones of the Most High. Their kingdom shall be an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey them. Note that other translations wrongly have, and shall obey him, that is the Son of Man, but in the context of this verse, it's better to say them, that is the holy ones of the Most High, Christians. The prophet Hosea in chapter 2 where God says that in the future I will lead her back into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her, that is Jerusalem. From there I will give back her vineyards to her and turn the valley of trouble into an opportunity for hope. There she will sing as she did when she was young, when she came up from the land of Egypt. At that time, declares the Lord, you will call my husband. You will never again call me my master. For I will remove the names of Baal idols from your lips, so that you will never again utter their names. And the prophet Zechariah in chapter 9, where God says he will remove the chariot from Ephraim and the war horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow will be removed. Then he will announce peace to the nations. His dominion will be from sea to sea, and from the Euphrates River to the ends of the earth. Then in the New Testament, Paul says that this gospel about the kingdom was first preached to Abraham as his land promise in the visions recorded throughout Genesis chapters 12 to 17. But then the promise to Abraham is extended to the whole earth in Romans 4, verse 13, when Paul says that the promise to Abraham and to his descendants was that he would inherit the whole earth and not just a patch of land. Compare this to Jesus saying on his Sermon on the Mount that the meek, the humble, will inherit the whole earth in Matthew 5:5, and this will happen at his parousia, according to the vision of John in Revelation chapter 5, where from every tribe, language, people, and nation will be made kings and priests for God to rule the world. According to the Old Testament prophets, Jesus and his apostles, when the kingdom finally comes, it will be sudden, immediately. It will not come in stages, like a building that's under construction now. No, the kingdom will be, says Daniel chapter 2, like a fast falling rock, crushing all other wicked kingdoms. Like a fast moving fire, says the prophet Zephaniah, that will consume and bring to a sudden end all evil on earth. This imagery is repeated throughout Luke chapter 17, when Jesus explains the coming of the kingdom like the fast flash of lightning across the sky, like the rush of the floodwaters of Noah's day, like the sudden fire and brimstone of Sodom and Gomorrah. And Paul later says unbelievers will be caught off guard and the wicked speedily judged in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. Now as to the periods and times, brothers and sisters, you have no need of anything to be written to you, for you yourselves know full well that the day of the Lord is coming, just like a thief in the night. While they are saying peace and safety, then sudden destruction will come upon them like labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. But you, brothers and sisters, are not in darkness, so that the day would overtake you like a thief. This is why Antony's "the kingdom of God will be all over" best translates the Greek estin, the word is, in Luke 17:21 idiomatically. That is, as a reference to the future and sudden arrival of the kingdom of God. This is the most natural reading after the obviously futurist force of the words of Jesus from verses 22 and following. This reading also fits the wider context and Jewish expectation that the kingdom of God was going to appear immediately, later in Luke 19, verse 11, which again fits with what Jesus says throughout Luke 17, verses 20 to 33, and the affirmation vision of Daniel in chapter 2, verse 35 and 40, and Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 18. The kingdom should never be defined as God's rule or reign within each individual believer. I mean, ask yourself, was that really what Jesus was saying to those unbelieving Pharisees in Luke 17:21? And then were those unbelieving Pharisees spreading and building God's kingdom? The German scholar Johannes Weiss was right to say in his book, Jesus' Proclamation of the Kingdom of God, what speaks more forcefully than all else against the kind of interpretation to which we have been objecting is the fact that Jesus put in the mouths of his disciples as the first petition of their prayer the words, "May your kingdom come." The meaning is not, "May thy kingdom grow, may thy kingdom be perfected," but rather, "May thy kingdom come." For the disciples, the kingdom is not yet here, not even in its beginnings. Therefore, Jesus bids them to seek first his kingdom. Luke 12, verse 31. This yearning and longing for its coming, this ardent prayer for it, and the constant hope that it will come soon, this is their religion. We would import an opaque and confusing element into this unified and clearly unambiguous religious frame of mind, were we to think somehow of a coming in an ever higher degree, or of a growth or increase of the kingdom. Either the kingdom is here, or it is not yet here. For the disciples and for the early church, it is not yet here.